Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a scenario. You clone a new repository, or maybe you're jumping into a legacy project at work. You open it up. What's the very first thing you look at?
Usually, I'd say the readme,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I'll crack open main or index, to find the entry point. You want to see the logic.
Right, that's the instinct. We look at the walls and the furniture.
Yeah.
But how often do you go down into the basement and look at the pipes? I'm talking about the config files, the .prettierrc, .eastlintrc, all those YAML files.
Honestly, almost never.
Yeah.
Not unless something is broken. Those files are usually pretty terrifying. Just a list of obscure settings I'm too afraid to touch.
Exactly. We treat them like black boxes. But today, we are going to pry that box open. We're looking at a blog post from a site called kianmeng.org by a developer named Eng. And Eng describes himself in a way that I think is just perfect. He calls himself an old software plumber.
I love that, but that title is so grounding. It's not about chasing the latest shiny framework. It's someone who cares about the infrastructure, the stuff that, actually makes everything work.
And his blog completely backs that up. I was looking through the sidebar. It's not just code. He's got notes on fish keeping, gardening, photography. He's a true tinkerer.
A Renaissance tinker, yeah.
And today, he's tinkering with something that drives a lot of us crazy. Automated code formatting, specifically for the Haskell programming language.
Right. He's digging into a tool called Fourmolu.
Fourmolu, it sounds like a spell from Harry Potter.
It does, but for anyone not deep in the Haskell world, Fourmolu is the tool that standardizes your code. It's like prettier for JavaScript or black for Python. It's the robot that cleans your room.
But here's the problem he ran into, and this is universal. He wanted to customize it. He runs the command to print the default configuration, and he just gets this wall of text.
The classic wall of YAML.
It's just keys and values, indentation, forward comma style is leading, let style auto. There's no context, no explanation of what any of it does.
That's the black box problem right there. You see a setting like comma style, leading, but you have no idea what that actually looks like. You have to change it, run the tool, see if it's ugly, change it back. It's just trial and error.
So Eng decides to fix this, and his solution is so simple, but it feels very, very modern. He didn't go read the source code. He used AI.
And this is one of the most pragmatic uses of AI I've seen in a while. He didn't ask it to write his code. He asked it to take that dry config file and just annotate it. He basically said, for every setting, show me a code example.
That is such a massive quality of life upgrade. So instead of just seeing indentation, for the file now has a little comment block right above it showing 4 spaces versus 2. It turns the config file into its own instruction manual.
It bridges that gap between machine instruction and human intent. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to walk through Eng's choices because they aren't just settings. They're a whole philosophy of how code should be read.
Okay, let's start with the visuals. The rhythm of the page. The first big choice he makes is indentation. 4.
4 spaces. That's a very specific commitment to structure.
Is it? I feel like I see 2 spaces all the time now, especially in web dev. Why 4?
2 spaces is all about density. It's super common in JavaScript, HTML, that world. You're trying to fit as much as possible on the screen. But 4 spaces. 4 spaces is about clarity.
It gives the code room to breathe.
Exactly.
Right.
And in Haskell, white space is significant. It tells the compiler where a block starts and ends. With just 2 spaces, it's really easy for the human eye to get lost. 4 spaces creates this very distinct visual step. You can't miss it.
It's saying hierarchy matters more than screen real estate.
Precisely.
Well, speaking of screen real estate, this next setting, it made me laugh because it feels so rebellious today. Column limit, none.
The ultimate trust me setting.
Right. Usually these formatters are so strict, you go over 80 characters or 100, and they just chop your line in half.
Yeah, that goes all the way back to the 1970s, to punch cards and old terminals. We're still haunted by that 80-column ghost. But Eng is saying, nope, the robot doesn't decide where my sentence ends.
But isn't that kind of dangerous? You could end up with lines that just go on forever.
It can be. But the argument is about semantic flow. Sometimes a line of code should be long because it's one single unbreakable thought. If the formatter splits it arbitrarily at character 81, it breaks your reading flow. It's jarring.
So Eng is saying, I'm the plumber. I'll decide how long the pipe needs to be.
He's taking the scissors away from the robot. It requires discipline, though. You have to be responsible enough to hit enter yourself when things get messy.
Okay, let's get into the weeds a bit. Or maybe the wars, the comma wars.
Oh, boy. The most heated debate in formatting.
Eng has set comma style to leading. Now, I want you to visualize this because it is. It's weird if you haven't seen it. A normal list is Apple, comma, new line, banana, comma, new line.
Right. Trailing commas. That's what we learned in English class.
Leading style means apple, new line, comma, banana, new line, comma, carrot. The comma is at the start of the line. Visually, I have to be honest, it looks wrong.
It looks very wrong to the untrained eye. It breaks that clean left margin. But there is a very specific, very pragmatic reason for it. And it has nothing to do with aesthetics. It's all about diffs.
Version control.
Exactly. Think about Git. If you have a list with trailing commas and you add a new item to the bottom, you have to go to the previous last item, add a comma, and then add your new line.
So when I look at the history, it says I changed 2 lines.
Correct. Even though you logically only added one thing, that's noise. It creates merge conflicts. With leading commas, you just add a new line that starts with a comma. The old lines are untouched.
It keeps the history clean.
It's what Eng calls diff-friendly. He prioritizes the history of the code over the immediate visual prettiness. It's a very old plumber mindset. Function over form.
And he does the same thing with imports, right?
Import-export style?
Yeah.
Diff-friendly?
Yep. Instead of one long horizontal line, it forces a vertical list. Again, easy to scan, easy to add one thing without touching the others. It's all about maintainability. I want to touch on one more visual cue. The arrows. Haskell uses these arrows to define types. Input, arrow, output.
Right. Key value. It shows the data transformation.
Eng set function arrows to trailing, so the arrow stays at the end of the line.
This is a subtle UX design choice for code. If you have a function with, say, 3 or 4 heavy arguments, you'll split it over multiple lines. By keeping the arrow at the end, it acts like a to be continued sign.
It leads your eye.
It pulls you down, input 1, drop down, input 2 day. It creates this forward momentum. If the arrow's at the start of the next line, your eye has to jump back to the left. This keeps you moving.
It's like a page turner. Okay, so we've got the look. Now let's talk about structure. Because in Haskell, how you arrange things is the logic.
Absolutely. The layout defines scope.
There's a setting here called indent wheres, and he set it to false.
So in Haskell, you often use a where block at the bottom of a function for helper variables. It's like a footnote. Here's the math and where x equals 5.
Right.
The standard is to indent that where block. But Eng says no. He keeps the where keyword aligned with the main function name.
And why does that matter?
It flattens the pyramid. If you indent everything, your code starts looking like a sideways triangle. You run out of space.
Yeah.
By aligning it, he's saying these helpers are peers to the logic, not sub-thoughts. It keeps the code looking like a flat list.
It seems like he really likes these logical blocks. There's another setting for let blocks, let style.auto, and in style, right align.
This is one of my favorites, just for how cool it looks. You have let, your definitions, and then in, and the result. With right align, the tool pushes the in keyword over so it lines up perfectly under the it creates a visual box.
It's framing the code.
It reduces cognitive load. You don't have to scan for where the definitions end and the execution begins. The shape of the text tells you.
That idea, reducing cognitive load, I think that's the secret theme here. Look at the settings for parentheses. Single constraint parents. Always.
The defensive plumber strikes again.
Right. Because normally if you have a list of one item, you don't need parentheses. But he forces them anyway.
He forces them for constraints and for deriving clauses.
Yeah.
It's all about consistency. If I see show, I know it's a list, even if it's a list of 1. I don't have to mentally switch modes. It's always a list.
And if you add a second item later, the parentheses are already there.
Exactly. It's pre-optimizing for the future edit. It assumes the code is never finished.
I love that. Code is never finished. Okay, we have to talk about my absolute favorite setting in this entire file. And I love it just for the name.
I think I know which one.
Respectful?
True. It sounds like a rule in a kindergarten classroom. Be respectful.
It does. But here, it's the machine respecting the programmer. Specifically, it's respecting your empty lines.
Your white space, yeah.
So if I hit enter twice to make a big gap between 2 chunks of code, the formatter won't just come along and delete it.
Correct. And that is profound.
It's profound. It's just empty space.
But empty space is communication. You use paragraphs to tell a reader, okay, that thought is finished, take a breath. Now we're starting a new one.
And most formatters just see code as one continuous stream.
Most formatters are aggressive. They think, you only need 1 line here. Why 3? That's inefficient. Delete. They scrub away the human cadence.
So respectful. True tells the robot, if I put a gap here, I meant it. Leave it alone.
It lets the programmer use layout as a storytelling device. Eng says in the post, this gives him more choice. It prevents the code from becoming this sterilized, homogeneous wall of text.
It preserves the human touch.
Which is funny, right? We're using a robot to format the code.
Yeah.
But it's the robot knowing its place. Automation serving the human, not the other way around.
On the flip side of that, there's being brutally practical. The setting Unicode? Never.
Yeah, this is a big one in the Haskell world.
Because Haskell is so mathematical, you can use actual Greek symbols, the real arrow symbol, instead of a hyphen and a bracket.
And on a nice screen, a screenshot on Twitter, those Unicode symbols look gorgeous. They look like academic papers. Very smart.
But Ang says, never.
Because he's a plumber.
Mm.
Have you ever tried to SSH into a server on a bad connection and edit a file in Vim?
And all the special characters turn into just question marks or little boxes.
Exactly. Or you try to search for a function, but you don't know how to type the Greek letter lambda on your keyboard.
Ah.
You're staring at the code, but you can't type it.
So you're stuck.
You're stuck. ASCII, the stuff on your keyboard, is the universal language. It works everywhere. Choosing Unicode, never, is choosing reliability over vanity.
It's the copper pipe versus the fancy new composite that looks nice but needs a special tool to cut.
Perfect analogy. It's about reducing friction in the worst-case scenario.
Let's wrap up with documentation and sorting, the Haddock style settings.
Haddock is just the tool that turns Haskell comments into documentation websites, like JavaDoc or Sphinx.
Ang chose Haddock style, multi-line.
Which just ensures that even short comments get their own block. It visually separates the explanation from the code. It makes the documentation pop.
But the thing that caught my eye was the sorting, or the refusal to sort. Sort constraints. False. Sort derived classes. False.
Yeah.
Sort driving clauses. False.
False, false, false.
Why? I mean, I organize my books alphabetically. Why wouldn't I want my code lists alphabetical?
Because code isn't a library of independent items. It's a narrative.
Give me an example.
Say you have a function that needs a user ID and a database connection. You might list user ID first because that's the main thing. The database connection is just, well, it's plumbing.
A hierarchy of importance.
Right. Or maybe you group things by logic. These three are for error handling. These two are for display. If the tool comes in and alphabetizes them, it shuffles your logic. It destroys that mental grouping.
It scrambles the story.
Exactly. By saying sort, false, Ang is saying the order in which I wrote these things matters. I wrote them this way for a reason.
It goes right back to that respectful setting, trusting the human intent.
It really is. It's resisting the urge to over-automate.
So when we step back and look at this whole file, we started out saying it was a black box of boring settings, but it's not, is it?
No, it's a manifesto.
A manifesto.
It is. Look at the choices. 4 spaces for structure, leading commas for clean history, trailing arrows for flow, respectful white space for storytelling, no Unicode for reliability. This is Ang defining a philosophy of resilient, human-readable software.
It's amazing how much personality can be packed into a generic config file.
That's the big takeaway for me. We usually treat these files as set it and forget it. But Ang took the time to generate it, annotate it with AI so he actually understands it, and then tune it.
He turned a tool that usually dictates how you work into a tool that supports how you work.
And that's the old software plumber wisdom right there. Don't fight the tools, but don't let them push you around. Understand the plumbing, master your tools.
And using AI to generate the examples to make the config file itself a piece of documentation is just such a clever modern twist on that old wisdom.
Absolutely. It empowers you to tweak it later. You're not afraid of the file anymore because you can see exactly what each knob does. You have the manual right there with you.
So here's our challenge to you, the listener. You have a project somewhere. You have a config file you've been ignoring. Maybe a prettier file, maybe a linter.
Or even just your IDE settings, your .editor config.
Open it up. Look at it. Is it a list of random keys you copied from a tutorial 3 years ago? Or does it tell the story of how you and your team really want to work?
And hey, maybe copy-paste it into an AI and ask it to explain it to you. See if you actually agree with what the robot is doing to your code.
You might find out you've been letting the machine make some bad design choices for you.
You might indeed.
That is all for today's deep dive into the plumbing of Haskell. Huge thanks to Ang at keyandmeng.org for the inspiration.
Keep tinkering.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive. Goodbye.